Jessica Luxx is a country folk singer from regional South Australia who released her debut single, Heavy Lifting, last year. She has a new single, The Temple, ready for release soon. And on the 18th of August, she will play at the Wheatsheaf Hotel in Adelaide for the Ramblin Winter Moon Revue. I'm going to ask her about a few of those things. Hello, Jessica.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. I'm actually going to start at the beginning of your musician life, rather than the beginning of your musical life, because I have a feeling you grew up musically. But when you were 12, your uncle gave you a guitar, and that started your life as a musician. Did you teach yourself to play guitar at that age, or were there lessons involved?
No, I taught myself. So I had this grand plan of being Jewel. So the 90s singer that we all know and love. And my plan was that I would teach myself guitar, write all my music, and then get a combi and travel around the world in my combi playing songs.
That was a very specific plan to have at that age.
Very specific, yeah. And it changed. I didn't do the combi and I didn't do the traveling the way that I'd planned, but I did learn guitar and I did keep playing and write music.
Yeah, right. So obviously you were listening to Jewel from quite a young age. Who else were you listening to?
Around that time, a lot of sort of growing up around the 2000s, there was a lot of pop. Like it was a really great time for pop music. But then I discovered the Beatles and Joni Mitchell, and then sort of growing up around folk music, there was a lot of Carter Family and just a lot of folk classics. All the songs that everybody knows, and I grew up around a lot of those. So there was quite a big kind of vast amount of music around. And my gran played us a lot of musical theatre. Okay. So there was a lot that we were sort of taking in. But I think for me, the music that I really gravitated towards was anything folk and anything sort of 60s and 70s kind of material, and then Jewel.
So I guess, where Jules has something in common with 60s and 70s and folk music is storytelling and a really evocative voice. And some of the artists you mentioned, Joni Mitchell, the Beatles, a lot of that is about the voices and how appealing they are. So have you always been interested in being a singer as well?
Absolutely. And that was kind of where I'd started. My mum put me in singing lessons when I was 9 because she said I talked too much and she thought that might help. I think it probably made it worse. But I think that she could see that I really liked to communicate, and the storytelling of any song, even the pop songs that I was listening to, in the 90s, it was those ones that had a real amazing and gritty storyline. I'd hear a lot of Morissette on the radio and just thought that was just so cool. And the Cranberries and, a lot of those sort of like folk-esque sort of pop musicians, the storytelling element was always the thing that shone through for me, and real good songwriting.
Yeah. So when you got that guitar, I suppose it was with an intention of being able to play and sing at the same time, but did that come together the way you'd hoped within the time frame you'd hoped for?
I think when you do something so young, you just throw yourself into it and you don't really think that you can't do it. I think if I was going to pick up a guitar and try and learn it now, all of the things that could go wrong would actually occur to me. But when you're so young, you just be like, I could do this, I can do anything. So that was kind of nice because I just kind of figured that I'd be able to work it out, and that was good enough. And it's not into my adult years that I'm like, there's a few gaps in what I know.
Jewel is a solo performer. She obviously would have a band behind her at some stage, but I'm wondering if you have joined a band, or you joined a band in your teenage years as you were developing as a musician.
Yeah, I was really lucky that our friendship group, we all gravitated towards music, and we all kind of learned instruments, and we were all just like playing whatever we could get our hands on. And we had a band growing up, and it was the most fun. We started this band, I think we were around 15, and we kept that band going into our 20s. And it was just, we'd meet at my house and have a rehearsal, and then we'd, have a barbecue or something like that. And then we'd all go out partying together, that evening. So it was really, really fun, like hardworking, but really joyous time in music in my life.
So when you were in that particular band, were you the front woman, or were you just not just one of the musicians, but not taking a front role?
No, I was front. Yeah, I was front and majority of the music. And then which was great because it kind of like I could write the music and bring it to the band, and then we'd all put our parts in, and then every now and then one of the other members would come along and go, I've got this lyric, or I've got this little guitar piece that I've been wanting to play with, and can we use it and can we grow it? And that was our kind of core about how we'd write music.
Right. Because it is, I think it's a decision to become a front woman. It's not, or any kind of front person. It takes a particular type of energy and a particular intention. So is it something that you felt like you were ready for and you wanted to step into and had been training for almost? Or was it just more like, well, I'm here, I'm going to give it a go?
I think being born a Leo helped. I was always happy to be front and center. I love it. I really like engaging with an audience. And again, it just sort of like, it's this sort of like notion of storytelling and communication as just another place to do that. So yeah, I really enjoy it. I like being up front.
I once worked with someone who used to work around the music industry, and particularly like the big day out when that existed. And she said once there was a party at a big day out and everyone had to come as their star sign written on their like a sticky label sort of thing. And she said all the lead singers were Scorpios.
Wow, fiery, yeah. And because they just cut through all the crap and just get right in there. And yeah, that's funny.
I think Leo works too,
I'm always really curious in a band setting what people's star signs are. I find that really interesting. And then also you got to find out their moon signs too, because that's the stuff that they're trying to hide.
Yeah, right. True. So is there a particular, this is a bit of a tangent, but since you brought it up, is there a particular set of star signs you prefer to work with as a fire sign, as a Leo? Do you like other fire signs, or do you need a bit of balance?
I think in my particular chart, I have a really balanced chart. And it's also something that, spirituality and all the metaphysical stuff is actually a huge part of what I grew up with. And so I'm conscious about working with other people. And I also I work well amongst a big group. And so I'm always really interested when there's a funny dynamic to kind of, work out what that is. And yeah, so I think I'm always able to relate to different people with different signs. I haven't bumped heads with anybody yet, so.
Well, and you mentioned rising signs, and of course in Vedic astrology, the rising sign is more key than the sun sign. So because that's meant to determine more of your personality. So you're obviously attuned to that rising sign and sun sign work in combination.
Yeah, and different times in your life, you'll be more prominent in different signs. And so that's always nice too, because it's like we kind of grow into ourselves a bit, and the things that are maybe a little bit more brash in our younger years, we can soften a little bit as we kind of, mosey on into life, and things can kind of brush off you a little bit easier. You don't take things as personally.
Yeah. So when you're performing, do you feel like you sort of channeling or accessing more sun sign energy? Like that is actually something that you can bring forth in performance?
Yeah, well, I think being a Leo, there is a confidence and a leadership that I gravitate towards naturally. And I have a Virgo rising, or a Virgo moon, sorry, and a Cancer rising. So I think my Virgo moon helps me to be detail oriented. And so I am a bit of a perfectionist, and, I do throw myself fully into things, which I'm learning to get better at a little bit. But then I think the Cancer rising, it's really about creating like a safe space for everybody, and like a homely kind of approach to things, and a nurturing space. And so I think between the fiery Leo, happy to deliver and happy to be in the front, there's also like an encompassing that I like to bring in, and a softness that I like to kind of welcome everybody into in a space of music.
But I would think Virgo perfectionism is useful for a musician because, you have to practice. It is helpful to have that mentality that's prepared to put up with the practice in order to get really good.
I think so, yeah. And just to when you really want something, it really gives you that ability to dig in deep. If there's something that you're interested in or something that you care about, you can kind of like, I don't know, almost hyper focus in a way. I think that helps with that.
So you said you grew up around spirituality. For you, from a young age, was there a sense that music is a spiritual practice?
Oh, absolutely. You know, as a small child, I had, you know, mum's group of friends who were all in spiritual communities, and they would call me the goddess of music, which was really sweet. And so I think I took that on in a way, and it gave me like a, I don't know, almost like a purpose, I suppose, to kind of be like, and a reason to pursue it, because it was like, you know, I was kind of almost told in a way that that was what I was here to do. And I think I do embrace that deeply, because I teach music as well. I teach vocals, and I definitely go into music with a whole body and whole mind and kind of metaphysical approach in a way. So yeah, absolutely.
I do think that's how a lot of people who love music receive it as well. It's not just, oh, it's notes and it's a melody or whatever it is. It's actually a whole experience, if that makes sense.
Oh, when you meet somebody on the other side of that, as the person delivering it, when the person that you meet on the other side is the one just absorbing that fully and wholly, and yeah, almost having the same kind of like receptiveness to what you're delivering, it is the reason that you play music. And you know, if somebody gets teary or you know, just feels something deeply, if they feel joyous or anything, that's, you know, I feel that hugely, and it gives me the reason to keep going. And yeah, it's a most beautiful connection.
So I imagine, yes, when you're in performance, that does put a different cast on things, in terms of, it's not for you, it's not just playing a gig, it's actually the opportunity to have an experience with the people who are there, an opportunity to connect with them and create something unique in that moment.
Absolutely, it's community. It's you know, and I love to go and chat to people afterwards. And yeah, yeah, it's, I think when you're on the stage as well, people, you know, you might be one person and there might be, you know, however many in the crowd, and then you get off stage and you've just spent 40 minutes or so, or plus sometimes, you know, with those people. And so it is kind of intimate, especially in sort of a folk music setting. You do, you know, you talk about the songs, and the songs are often, you know, in folk music and country music, pretty intimate and generally have a pretty crunchy undertone. So, and people are relating to that for, you know, 40 minutes of intense feelings. And so it is nice to have a chat to people afterwards, because you have generally been pretty intimate with them and a time.
So when you started writing songs, was it with a particular intention of what you wanted to communicate with people, or was it more given that you were in a band with your friends thinking we just need to get some material at this point in time?
No, I think there was always a lot of intention, for me, the intention in the lyrics, because I think, because I'd grown up, you know, the people that I had learnt story like, you know, songwriting from were, you know, Joni Mitchell and the Beatles and Jewel, and there was always the lyrics always jumped out to me. And so I think that's kind of what I gravitated towards. And it was always important to me to you know, when it came to songwriting, to have a really good story and a good structure, but then also the, you know, the chord sequences and things like that to back up what you're saying, and to have that kind of harmonious kind of approach. And then also yeah, I don't know, to have like that synergy of everything meeting together, a great, you know, a great hook line. Like I love a good hook line. And so to really to have that be the thing to drive the story along.
So you had been writing songs, performing in a band, teaching vocals, but during the pandemic, of course, everything paused, except from what I understand, you actually made some use of that pandemic downtime to think about what you wanted to do as a solo artist, and out of that emerged your debut single, Heavy Lifting. So what was that trajectory for you through that time? Was it first that discombobulation of, oh, my work has stopped, and then you tried to shift your mindset, or did it happen more slowly? Take me through it.
Yeah, no, it for me, it was a huge time. And I think, you know, when I talk to people, it was a huge time of reflection for so many people. And like in uncertainty, people are, you know, really talking things through to try to figure it out. And, you know, I remember when this, you know, this thing that was coming around was, you know, we couldn't be in, you know, couldn't have lots of people in one place. And so I had weeks of cover band gigs booked, and, you know, some of them had been ticketed, some of them were just, you know, just show up kind of ones. And bit by bit, I'm getting these phone calls saying, you know, oh, look, we don't know what's going on, but we need to put a hold on things, and, you know, we'll let you know what's going. And it was just phone call after phone call, just saying, we don't know what to do, but we have to cancel. We're being told we have to cancel. And someone's going, oh, we're not going to cancel, and then, you know, a couple of days later, actually we're going to cancel. And so I was just kind of watching everything and just going, oh my gosh. And then, you know, we all went into lockdown, and I don't know if it was intentional that I would just start writing more and more and make that a prominent time, but it definitely happened. And Heavy Lifting was a pretty cathartic kind of time in a song for me. There was like myself and a bunch of people around me. I was really noticing how we were all struggling in all sorts of different things. And I think the struggles that came up were things that were sitting there before COVID. And then they really helped to, you know, being forced to do something really weird, like lock yourself in a house for, you know, weeks on end, really kind of puts things to the front of your mind and of your life. And I was just noticing so much of that. And I didn't specifically write Heavy Lifting as an answer to it, but that was what was sitting there for me. And then after releasing Heavy Lifting, and around the time of the release, I had a really hard time where you know, I think we kind of have these different levels of maybe like soul awakening kind of things. And it's, you know, people call it the dark night of the soul. And I had like a real crash. I really burnt out, and I really wanted to make a lot of changes in my life and how I approached things, and you know, just sort of getting older and looking at things differently. And I just kind of went, I can't do life the way I've been doing it. So I released Heavy Lifting, had a bit of a breakdown, retreated a huge amount, and then Heavy Lifting kind of did this amazing thing where it kind of grew legs of its own, and people started responding to it, and, you know, sending me messages on Facebook and, you know, Instagram and all those kind of things, saying, you know, that it really meant something to them. And I kind of underestimated the magnitude, I think, of the song for a while, and then it started to become apparent that I was like, actually, this is really beautiful. Like, it's actually reaching people. And maybe because it came from such an authentic place on my behalf, it was able to reach people on the other side going through maybe not the same things, but something reminiscent of a hard time.
Yeah. So it seems like, you know, you offered that song as your debut single to people, obviously the energy that had gone into creating that, and I think there's probably delayed reactions to everything that happened through lockdown as well. And so you put all this energy into releasing the song. You had your own reaction to it, which was to crash. But then that song has come back and given you support from other people. So it seems like there's a beautiful circularity to that.
Oh, absolutely. And it's just one of those moments where you go, wow, music does things that you couldn't even anticipate. Like, I could have never planned for how that was going to come about. And it's really interesting. I think it's when you create honest and authentic art of any kind, and just kind of put it out in the world, maybe without too much intention, and just kind of sit back and let it come back in however it does. And I think if you don't have huge expectations, or like, you know, specific expectations of what you're wanting to get from it, and you just open yourself up to possibilities, it's pretty amazing when things come and smack you in the face that you didn't anticipate.
Mm-hmm. So the next single, will be The Temple. I was confounding some temple and single then. Can you tell us what that's about?
Single.
Yes, can you tell us what The Temple is about?
Yeah, so The Temple, I'm really excited about that song. It almost feels like the other side of Heavy Lifting. Right. So Heavy Lifting is about the struggles and about kind of like, you know, throwing yourself off into the unknown when you're kind of going, I can't do this anymore. The Temple is when you go through that journey and you start to just go, I'm giving in. I'm allowing myself to be the person I'm supposed to be. I'm allowing myself to undo old thought patterns. I'm allowing nature to affect me. I'm allowing the relationships around me to be healthy and well, and, you know, my choice. And and The Temple, you know, is that place within yourself that you reach. And the lyric of the chorus is, take no prisoners to the temple. Mm-hmm. So it's just, you know, don't hold on to anything that's going to stop you from really just like ascending to your best self.
Yeah, it's a very powerful line in the song. It keeps running through my head. I'm like, well, it's very evocative.
Oh,
No doubt you'll be performing that single at the iconic Wheatie in Adelaide in a couple of weeks' time from when we're talking. I imagine you've played there a few times already.
oh, I love the Wheatsheaf. Yeah, it's such a beautiful, intimate place, and I've done all sorts of things there. And every time I go there, it's it's a different energy for whatever it is that you're doing, but it just welcomes everybody in. Even the setting of it is like you sit down and you just enjoy.
And there are some other artists on the bill because it is billed as a review show, so it sounds like it will be a full evening's entertainment.
Oh, it's so special. So Todd Richmond Bennett, who organises the Ramblin Moon Revue, we did a one earlier this year where we toured through regional South Australia. And there was 5 of us on the bill. Then there was Todd played himself, myself, Jen Lush, AP D'Antonio, 6 of us, Alexander Black and Georgie Rocco. And that was amazing, and we had a great time, and it was met with a lot of success. And so Todd had the idea of doing like a winter edition here in Adelaide. And so there's myself, there's Ella Ion, who is a beautiful singer-songwriter and just writes really gorgeous, like deep, rich melodies and lyrics. Ryan Martin John, who is a fantastic folk musician, and again, like really beautifully written songs with great lyrics. And then Kelly Manhennet, who her voice just like captures you. And so it's a really beautiful, diverse and rich lineup.
Mm-hmm. Well, after hearing you talk about playing live, I very much wish I could be in Adelaide for that gig, because I think it would be a lovely experience to watch you play live. People can see you play live 18th of August at the Wheatsheaf in Adelaide. Your new song will be coming out around about the same time, although date TBC, and it is a fantastically powerful, evocative song. So Jessica Luxx, it's been great to talk to you about both of those things and other things besides, and I look forward to whatever you come up with next.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.